The night in Denver was colder than expected, and Emily Parker was grateful for the warmth of the fireplace in her living room. She had always loved evenings like this, when the sky turned a deep shade of blue and the city outside felt quiet, as if it was holding its breath. Emily was curled up on the couch, a blanket pulled over her shoulders, her eyes closed as she tried to block out the long, exhausting day she had just endured at work. She worked as a project manager at a growing tech company downtown, where deadlines seemed to pile up endlessly. Her eyes had been glued to her computer screen for hours, coordinating her team, fixing problems, and responding to clients. By the time she drove back home, the weight of stress had settled heavily on her. Tonight, she needed nothing more than a moment to recharge. Emily had just taken a slow, deep breath when she heard the sound of keys rattling at the door. She didn't move immediately. Her eyes stayed closed, her mind briefly drifting between relaxation and curiosity. It was her husband, Daniel, she knew. He was always punctual, reliable, and someone who had the uncanny ability to bring light into any room. When the door opened, the familiar sound of Daniel's footsteps filled the entryway. Emily, his voice called warmly. Her lips curved into a tired but genuine smile. "I'm right here," she replied softly, her eyes still closed as she leaned back into the couch cushions. Daniel walked over, his presence always steady and comforting. But tonight, there was something different about his voice. It carried a hint of excitement, like a secret waiting to be revealed. "Don't open your eyes just yet," he said with a playful tone. Emily chuckled lightly, shaking her head. "What are you up to now?" "Just trust me," Daniel answered, his words laced with reassurance. Eyes closed and ready? Her heart fluttered at the familiarity of the game. Daniel loved surprises, and Emily had learned long ago to indulge his little mysteries. "Okay," she whispered. "I'm ready." There was a pause, then the sound of the front door opening again. Another set of footsteps entered the room, heavier, different from Daniel's. Emily's brow furrowed in confusion, though her eyes remained shut as instructed. "Daniel," she said carefully, "what's going on?" "You'll see," Daniel replied, his voice calm but filled with anticipation. "I invited someone in." Emily opened her eyes at last, the curiosity too strong to resist. Standing in her living room was Daniel's best friend, Marcus. Tall, broad-shouldered, and wearing his usual warm smile, Marcus had been a part of their lives for years. He lived just a few blocks away, and the two men had known each other since college. Emily considered him family, someone who had celebrated birthdays, Thanksgivings, and countless game nights with them. "Marcus?" she said in surprise, sitting up straighter on the couch. Marcus laughed lightly. "Daniel told me you needed a little distraction tonight. Thought I'd drop by." Emily blinked, then glanced back at her husband, who was now grinning sheepishly. "A distraction?" she repeated. Daniel shrugged. "You've been working nonstop, Em. I figured instead of just sitting around, we could do something fun together. And who better to invite than Marcus?" Emily exhaled, her initial confusion melting into reluctant amusement. Daniel's surprises sometimes caught her off guard, but she couldn't deny the thoughtfulness behind them. "Well," she said with a smile, "I can't argue with that." Marcus pulled off his jacket and settled into the armchair across from her. "I brought a few things," he said, pointing to the bag he had set down by the door. "Board games, some snacks, and, well, maybe a little healthy competition." Emily laughed. "I should have known. You two can't go more than a week without turning everything into a contest." "That's because competition keeps life interesting," Marcus replied with a wink. And just like that, the night began to shift. The weight of Emily's stress slowly unraveled as they opened a board game Marcus had brought, an old favorite they hadn't played in years. Daniel and Marcus teased each other relentlessly, tossing playful remarks back and forth as Emily found herself caught in the middle, laughing harder than she had in weeks. Hours seemed to pass in a blur of dice rolls, card shuffles, and stories from the past. Marcus recalled embarrassing tales from college that made Daniel groan, and Emily nearly cry from laughter. Daniel, in turn, reminded Marcus of the time he had gotten lost on a hiking trail in Boulder, only to be found sitting on a rock eating granola bars he had sworn he'd packed just in case. Emily felt lighter with every passing moment. It was as if the exhaustion of the workday had never existed, replaced by warmth, camaraderie, and the simple joy of connection. As the fire crackled in the background, Marcus leaned back in his chair and sighed. This feels like old times. Just hanging out, no pressure, no distractions. Life gets so busy that we forget how important nights like this are. Daniel nodded in agreement. That's exactly why I wanted you here. Emily needed it, and honestly, so did I. Emily's heart swelled as she looked between the two men who meant so much to her. It wasn't about the games or even the laughter. It was about the reminder that she wasn't alone in carrying the weight of life. Daniel had seen her stress, recognized her need for relief, and instead of letting her drown in it, he had brought in someone who could help lift her up. By the time midnight rolled around, the three of them were still talking, their voices softening as the night grew quieter. Marcus eventually stood, stretching with a tired grin. All right, I'd better head out before I fall asleep on your couch. Emily got up to walk him to the door. Thanks for coming, Marcus. Really? This was exactly what I needed tonight. He gave her a kind smile. Anytime, Emily. I'm always just a call away. After Marcus left, Daniel wrapped his arm around Emily's shoulders. So, was that a good surprise? Emily leaned into him, her smile genuine and full. It was perfect, she whispered. You always know what I need, even when I don't. Together, they turned off the lights, the fire now just glowing embers, and headed upstairs. Emily's heart felt at peace. Eyes closed at the beginning of the night, she had been ready for rest, but instead, Daniel had opened the door to laughter, friendship, and love. And it was exactly the kind of surprise she would never forget.